Back-to-back 9-win seasons have brought a ton of optimism and excitement here to Raleigh as the Wolfpack spring practice culminates today with the 2019 KYOW spring game. Here at Carter-Finley Stadium, hello everybody, my name is Andrew Sanders alongside the senior NFL writer for CBS Sports, Will Brinson, and the quarterback of the Oakland Raiders, Mike Glennon. So glad you could join us here. A lot to look forward to in this one. Get our first look here at the spring of the 2019 version of Dave Doran's NC State Wolfpack. What are we looking forward to most, guys?
Not going to steal the quarterback's thunder. I like the I like the young guys. What about these early enrollees? A bunch of North Carolina recruits coming in could make an impact on Dave Doran's program. You've seen the recruiting blossom. You've seen these guys really get big in the Body by Thunder program. Want to see how these young guys can impact this spring game.
Yeah, and for me, it's all about the quarterbacks. I want to see how these three quarterbacks kind of compete against each other and what will be the closest thing to a game experience and really just who stands out in this type of environment.
Well, here's the format for the KYOW spring game, and it's going to be a little bit different than a traditional game, Will.
Yeah, there's the points don't matter. No, they do matter. What we're looking for here is reps. That's the thing with these spring games. You can't get caught up in the scoreboard. You got to worry about the reps and how the guys look. When the offense scores, we got an NC State end zone, we got a Wolfpack end zone. The offense is going to score in different end zones, and so it's sort of like a 5-year-old T-ball game. It'll be everybody gets a participation trophy, and we just want to see how these quarterbacks look, right, Mike?
Yeah, and my three keys to the game would be, as we hit on earlier, starting with the quarterback battle. We have Matt McKay, kind of the guy that's been around a little bit, was a backup last year to Carter-Finley. I want to see his growth in this offense. Then we got Devin Leary, the highly recruited Elite 11 quarterback who's got unbelievable arm talent. Want to see him process information, and then we'll finish up with Bailey Hawkman, who's the transfer in from Florida State, learning the system, athletic, and throw it. Second thing is staying healthy. I think that would be the number one thing these coaches want to see is they want to walk out of here without any serious injuries. Already down to 9 offensive linemen. I want to see if the offensive line can give these quarterbacks enough time to showcase what they can do. And finally, get to see these freshmen and walk-ons play. We got 19 early enrollees, which seems like it's got to be a record.
It's a lot, man.
But it's going to be their first time playing Carter-Finley Stadium, and there's also the walk-ons. They work all year long. They put in the same amount of time as everyone else, and this is kind of their time to play in front of their friends and family.
The red team starting off with the football here. We welcome you to Carter-Finley Stadium. We've already seen Zonovan Knight touch the ball a couple of times, one of the exciting freshmen for this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, this is the running back position is an interesting one because for NC State, they've lost several guys to the NFL. As we see that ball popped up, hit the lineman there. Between Jalen Samuels and Nyheim Hines leaving, they've got a big void to fill. At this position, of course, Reggie Gillespie now off as well. I mean, this is a guy who's been a workhorse for NC State. So, can a young freshman come in? Mike, I think part of the problem with the spring game is you got to deal with the fact that you have these injuries at certain positions and guys have to step up. How hard is it for a guy like Zonovan to come in and be an impact guy out of the gate, given what you need to know about the offense?
Yeah, I think in this spring game it might be hard for him to really get going with the offensive line situation, but this is going to be very valuable reps for him to get. They've had some injury at running back. A lot of guys have left, but he's a guy that I know this coaching staff is excited about and can contribute right away as a true freshman. So I'm really excited to see him play.
There's buzz that he could end up being the starter like week 1. I mean, I know that's asking a lot, especially here at the spring game too, because you're talking about, we've seen the list of guys who are not going to play in this game. We talked to the coaches before the game and understand that offensive line, they made it very clear. There are a lot of offensive linemen who are hurt, and that's just part of the process that you're dealing with. You don't want to risk their health, but for a running back, it's tough to play behind a group you're not used to running with, right? Because you don't know how they're going to block it. You don't know where the holes are going to open up.
Well, I think the biggest thing with him is how you mentioned he could come in week 1 and be a starter. Without enrolling early, I don't know if that's possible. And for him to go through spring, get these 15 practices under his belt, he's now familiar with the running scheme, which that doesn't take a lot of time, but to learn the protections, understand
Sure.
the offensive line's calling out the Mike linebacker, how does that change his rules of protection? that's going to be the biggest advantage he has come August when the rest of the freshman class comes.
Leary hands the football off here. Get our first look at the redshirt freshman from the state of New Jersey, who is the all-time leading passer in New Jersey State history in terms of passing yards and in terms of touchdowns. As Mike told you earlier, an Elite 11 quarterback. And this is going to be an interesting battle. I know that there's a lot to focus on in this spring game. I think most people are going to focus on the quarterbacks. This is not something where we're going to have a clear answer at the end of the spring game, at the end of spring practice. This is going to be a battle that is going to certainly go into the fall. There's
been 1 year for NC State since 2008 where there wasn't a pretty clear indication about who was going to be the quarterback. That was 2013, Coach Doran's first season. Of course, Mike, we had a great run of quarterbacks, including Mike. After you left, there was an empty year, and then with the transfers with Ryan Finley and Jacoby Brissett. This is the first, I think this is the first true battle between multiple recruits that Dave Doran has had, right? I mean, this of his own making, I think.
Yeah, it's been a while. I think probably the last one was the year after I left in 2013, when it was Pete Thomas and Brandon Mitchell.
Yeah.
So ever since then, I mean, really, you look back over the past 2 decades, and NC State's had a pretty clear quarterback and been fortunate in that department.
We might get in trouble for mentioning 2013 if too often. But I do think that this is a fascinating battle between these guys, because you have in McKay, and I think talking to the coaches and talking to the players themselves, I mean, I think Devin Leary would admit this. He knows physically that he has all the tools to be successful immediately as a quarterback at the college level. But the mental reps and being able to diagnose defenses is what's going to be tough for him.
Yeah, I've had, I work out here in the off season. I throw with these guys, and there's no doubt that Devin has a big arm. I mean, he can spin it as well as the guys in the NFL. It's just going to be a matter for him of learning the offense, understanding defenses, and just going with taking the ball and putting it in the right place. I mean, sky's the limit with him. It's just going to be he just needs to play more football, really.
Andrew, there might be a risk factor here for the coaching staff too. Like, do they want to go for gusto with Devin Leary, or do they want to sort of play it safe with McKay in week 1 against ECU?
Ball batted down at the line. Do you want me to throw now or what?
By number 99, Joseph Bolatapelli.
A lot of new faces for NC State on the field today. We've also got a few new faces in the coaching staff. We're going to get to meet some of the new coaches here in this spring game. There's been such continuity on this coaching staff, but for the first time, got a couple of new coaches in. Fourth member of our broadcast crew, Aaron Summers, is down on the field with one of the new coaches now.
Number 7, Matthew McKay's pass is deflected by number 29, Aleem McNeil.
Top Coach Doran, I've known Coach Doran for a while now. We have some Kansas City connections, but the people here that make up. We got an awesome facility, beautiful day today, but the people that make this great. This is a great place, and for my wife and I, it was an easy decision once we meet those people.
Speaking of the people, you are one of the new faces on the offensive side. I have a lot of new players on the offensive line as well. How have you seen some of these players step up and fill some of the void for them?
Yeah, we're a place of 3 really good offensive linemen, so we knew that coming in here it was going to be a big challenge. And we've had some adversity through injuries and different things, and the guys have done a nice job. So some guys have been projected and pushed in some roles that they've had to step in and compete early, and I'm proud of the efforts there. The execution has got to improve, and that's something we'll continue to work on in the next 4 months.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Andrew?
That was weird.
So what was that? Did that work or not?
Shot down the field, and Thayer Thomas is able to hold on.
Nice haul there by Thayer. A little one-handed snag.
All right, so a lot of new faces, obviously, with some great players exiting the program, some first-team All-ACC players. This team had Kelvin Harmon, Jacoby Myers, the first time ever in ACC history to have not 1 but 2 first-teamers. And that obviously leaves a big void. But there's some talented wide receivers on this 2019 club. Thayer Thomas certainly one of them.
Yeah, I really like Thayer Thomas just from watching him last year. Former walk-on, comes in, earns a scholarship right away, and he's just kind of the classic slot receiver. He just seems to find a way to get open, and when the ball gets in his hands, good things happen. So I know they're feeling really good about him, and he's kind of the F, and then their X and Z are, Emeka Emezi and Riley. CJ Riley, who's your big X, can go up and get it. I think they've done a good job developing the receivers here, and it looks like these guys are ready to kind of be the next in line. Between
Kelvin Harmon, Jacoby Myers, Steph Lewis, and Reggie Gillespie, NC State is lost. This is pretty stunning. 58.7% of their total yardage from last year and 57.7% of all their touchdowns from last year. That is a lot of production to replace on a short notice. But I think one of the things that Dave Doran and his staff have preached in developing this program is creating depth at these positions. So when you do lose those guys to the NFL, when you do or transfer, wherever it is, that you have guys who can step up. And as Mike pointed out, I think there are plenty of guys in place who can do that for this offense.
Well, that's part of building the program and getting to that point. And now in year 7, that's where Coach Doran has gotten his program. Remember, 2 years ago they had 7 guys drafted in the NFL.
Yeah.
Came right back with another 9-win season. That is really building that program, and it's a next man up mentality. And now we're getting to see for the first time in 2019, the next guy's up.
Yeah, and it's not easy to replace that type of production. I think you could see it. First of all, Kelvin Harmon is a borderline first-round pick, maybe second round. We'll get into that later. Watching Dave Doran's reaction to Reggie Gillespie wrapping up his career, you could see how much he means to this program and how much he cares for him. These are valuable guys that you're losing. But we also saw, Emezi against Wake Forest last year had a monster game and came very close to pulling out the win, 2 years ago in Winston. And I just think that the reps that these guys have gotten in an offense that is varied and that asks so much of so many people has set them up for success this year.
Getting to see Bailey Hockman, the southpaw, for the first time today. So you mentioned the loss of Reggie Gillespie. NC State's had a 1,000-yard rush for the last 3 years, whether it's Matt Days, Naheem Hines, now Reggie Gillespie, and it's, again, that next man up. There's going to be some competition. That does lead me to the point. There are 16 players they're going to factor in for NC State this year that are not playing in this spring game, Ricky Person being one of them. But that does get us to see, obviously, a lot more of Zonovan Bam Knight. We get to see Bam a little bit more. And
did he come with a Bam nickname? Did he show up in Raleigh with the Bam nickname, or did that happen when he got here? That's a great nickname.
Self-proclaimed, or I hope someone gave it to him.
I do too. It's a great running back nickname too, though.
I think linebacker.
That's true. Yeah, linebacker. But running back, if you go Bam, you hit the hole. It works. I'm with you. Linebacker's better. I don't think that we have any points yet, which is not a great sign. When you see so go ahead.
Well, I was talking to Mike before this game, and we were discussing how at this point in the season, the defense is going to be well ahead of the offense.
Yeah, it seems like you could go to watch just about any spring game across the country, and for the most part, I think the defense is generally winning. And this is going to more than likely be no different. Hopefully the offense gets going. I thought that was a good throw right there by Bailey Hockman. The receiver's kind of got to work his way back down his route so the cornerback can't make the play on the ball. That might have been a first down, but hopefully the offense starts moving the ball so we can get some points on the board.
Something also to keep in mind with those 16 guys being out for the spring game, all 5 of the current starting offensive linemen are out for this game. So keep that in mind as Leary scampers out of bounds. Of course, not going to hit the guys in the green jerseys, but the defense is going to even be a little more ahead of the offense because it's not going up against the starters.
You don't have to deal with a lot of batted balls given your height, but we've seen some batted ball. McKay's had 3 or 4 knocked down. Do you think that's more a byproduct of him missing his throws, or is it maybe an offensive line issue where the defense is getting through there?
It could be a combination of some things. It could be what you're saying, but it also could be the defensive lineman kind of being lazy and just waiting at the line of scrimmage and trying to bat it down. But so far, hopefully, like we kind of hit on the offensive line gives these quarterbacks enough time to just let them showcase their abilities.
Sure. I think Leary, it's interesting to see him run there too, because McKay obviously is considered maybe more of a mobile quarterback, but Leary certainly. Look, the dude's what? He's 18, 19. He's got good legs. You don't lose your legs till you're like 35, really. Ooh, nice little toss there.
CJ Riley going up in traffic.
Now that
Leary
right there,
put
I
that ball on
think
a dime.
that's a great catch by the receiver. As what we're always told as quarterbacks on those jump balls is just give him a chance, and he gave him a chance there. You don't want to overthrow a guy there. You don't want to underthrow. You just want to give him a chance, and good throw, better catch.
C.J. Riley rising up.
It was on
over
Shaheem
one
Battle,
of those
too.
early enrollees. Shaheem Battle,
Yeah.
big-time recruit. Excited to see him play. And it's tough to cover a guy who's 6'5" and fastest 40 on the team.
Yeah, that's real tough to cover a guy like that, especially when you're that young. But that's the great point about this practice, about this spring game too, is you're getting as a young cornerback an opportunity to try to go one-on-one with that receiver, and I mean those are reps that are valuable for building right now, right?
Without a doubt, I think as we continue to hit on, this is just the closest thing to a game in practice. It doesn't quite feel the same. You're not necessarily taking the guy to the ground.
Oh, a little fade to
in
the
this
ends.
situation.
Ooh.
Another good ball.
Yeah.
Kind of throwing these big box fades early in this game.
Get another look at it here. And yes, we do have flags in the spring game.
Well, he just mauled him. It's clear pass interference. And that's not because we're offensive guys. I guess I'll root for offense. I don't really have a.
So that'll be
I should
Do you have
really
any action on this?
No, I don't have any action on this. I got Wolfpack. I don't know if I can say that.
Tyler Baker Williams will be called for pass interference. Get our first red zone look. See what the co-offensive coordinators dial up. That's, of course, one of the big storylines. A lot of people asking questions, well, if you have two offensive coordinators, who really calls the plays? Mike, I feel like you can give us some insight on that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a good play call.
So I've known Des Kitchings for a while. He was the running back coach here my senior year. So we've stayed in touch throughout the year, and I was no different than the fans. When it got announced they're going to be co-offensive coordinators, I thought, how's that going to work? So I reached out to Des, and he basically said that he's going to be more in charge of first and second down. George McDonald's going to be in charge of the situations, third down, red zone, et cetera. And then it made a lot more sense to me because the way these coaches watch film throughout the week is it's done by cut-ups. They watch first and second down. They watch third down. They watch red zone. It's all separate, and usually a certain coach is kind of the one in charge of each situation. So the fact that Des is going to be in charge of first and second down, and George is going to be charged at third down, I think makes perfect sense. And the reality is coaches, they rank these plays. They're going to have, 15 or so plays on third down, and they're going to rank them by down and distance, which one's their favorite. So going into the game, they pretty much know.
That's a nice route right there, Thomas.
What plays they're going to be calling in those situations.
Yeah,
so give the points to NC State here in this end zone as Thayer Thomas is the first in to score, and Leary is the first quarterback to put up points.
Yeah, I think you can just see his arm talent right there. He has a nice delivery. Ball comes out fast, kind of jumps off his hand. Good route, and a good throw, and good to see some points on the board.
I like what we saw from McDonald there in the red zone too, because you had the first rollout to the right, which should have been a touchdown had if it's a better catch. Then you have the run on second down. I'm not going to put a whole lot into I don't like running in the red zone personally. I'm not going to read a whole lot into the run game today because of the offensive line situation. The holes are just not going to be there with with the matchup they have.
We're going to take a quick break in the action. We'll rejoin you in just a couple of minutes here on the ACC Network Extra. 7-0 our score here at Carter-Finley Stadium as Devin Leary is able to lead the offense to points. Now Bailey Hockman with the ball and able to complete it over the middle. And that's Max Fisher with the catch, the redshirt sophomore from the state of Maryland.
How hard is it to throw a lefty in there in these spring game situations? I feel like that messed me up.
I know there's not a lot of lefty quarterbacks left. I guess Tua's kind of bringing them back, but for whatever reason, I feel like lefties just always look so smooth. I mean, they have smooth strokes. You look at golf, Phil Mickelson, watch basketball, see Harden. I mean, they just always look smooth, and I think Bailey Hockman's no different. He just looks like he has a smooth delivery.
Clayton Kershaw, even with the little funky with the leg, but he comes through nice and smooth.
Something about those lefties.
I think the lefties have gone the way of the middle relievers in baseball because it's the best paying gig in all of sports. It's like better than being a I mean, there's nothing better because you work maybe like 2 or 3 times a week. You're only for situational purposes. You make millions of dollars. You can play for 20 years. My son might be left-handed. We can't really tell. Maybe he's ambidextrous or amphibious, as Charles Shackelford once said. And if he is left-handed, middle reliever.
I have a 2.5-year-old son, and he's a lefty. And
nice.
I think I might be pushing the baseball route.
You should. Football is very lucrative, but for my family, we have a genetic problem, height-wise. We're just not going to. Football's not really in the cards. Maybe football analysis.
So the offensive line a little banged up today. The good news is none of these injuries serious enough that we expect them to last into the fall by any stretch of the imagination. This is an offensive line, the band of brothers that is replacing a couple big-time guys from last year, most notably the best center in college football in Garrett Bradbury.
And a future first-round pick. I would be absolutely floored if he didn't end up going in the first 32 picks. I thought the Carolina Panthers were a prime landing spot. They went out and signed Matt Paradis. As I understand it, Garrett has sort of indicated. I don't want to put words. I think teams understand, and he understands. He wants to be a center at the next level. He doesn't want to play guard. So you do have to worry about fit there. But what a story this guy is. I mean, a 3-star. Was it 2-star? Whatever. Low to mid-star tight end recruit out of Charlotte, and now he's maybe the best offensive lineman in college football coming out of his year. I think, Mike, that speaks a lot to the development that this program has sort of sustained, right?
Without a doubt, I think Thunder, the strength coach here, has done a remarkable job working with these guys, and I've seen the growth in Garrett. I come back here and in the weight room with these guys, and
oh wow.
Got a big screen pass here to Battle.
2-3 years ago, I told the offensive line coach, I pointed out Garrett. I said, that guy looks like an NFL offensive lineman. And, a couple weeks away, and we're now a couple weeks away from him being, like you said, hopefully a first-round pick. I know a lot of teams are excited about him. It's just a matter of if they have a need at that center position.
Yeah, and, when you look at what Garrett's done, I think Sports Info Solutions, if I can go all nerdy on you, has charged him with 7 penalties in his entire career. 2 false starts, 5 holds. That's pretty good over 3 years as a starting center. 43 total blown blocks in 39 games, which is also outstanding. The other thing you have to worry about maybe with fit is that he's a zone guy. So, you need I don't know if, he's necessarily going to be an ideal fit for every single scheme, but if you run that type of zone running offense, he's a guy you plug and play for 10 to 12 years and expect multiple Pro Bowls, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that run that outside zone that fits his skill set. He's fast, he can bend, and I think there's some need. You would be able to help more than me, but I think there's some need at the center position for some of those teams that run outside zone. The Rams come to mind, the Vikings with Gary Kubiak going there.
Yep.
I'm not sure who else is in the center market, but at that, late first. I think I wouldn't. It kind of reminds me. I think there's a lot of teams out there who would like Garrett Bradbury. I would be stunned if he makes. I don't know if he makes it down to the late 20s or early 30s. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he went earlier than that. Offensive line is so important in football in general, but tough to get in today's NFL because of the proliferation of spread and all of that. Bradbury, just another guy that's going to put the NC State mark on the pro system.
Deep shot again, looking for Thomas, and excuse me, just a moment ago, that was Donovan Knight with that big that screen pass catch. And we saw Emeka Emezi. He's changed numbers. He's now wearing Kelvin Harmon's old number 3. That's a guy he looks up to a lot, and it seems like Emezi is poised for a big year.
Yeah, everybody you talk to, around the program, everybody says they think Emezi's going to have a monster season. Now, I don't know that this offense isn't going to be a little more spread out than maybe even with Harmon there. We still saw them. The ball is heavily distributed. Ooh, nice little scramble there with McKay on a bad snap. Man, we were. That's part of the problem of the offensive line too.
Yeah, and then you're in third and 7 right there. Yeah. Those are the situations they want to see Matt McKay convert third downs And, unfortunately, just with the offensive line situation here, I think that's going to come up throughout this game.
When you got your third string center in there, it's going to be tough to get snaps off, right?
And we do have punts here in the spring game, but obviously no returns. That's another position battle that we're looking forward to. You got to replace one of the best in the ACC in A.J. Cole, who's a 4-year punter for the Wolfpack, but Trenton Gill, Mackenzie Morgan in a battle right now at the punter position. Obviously that's something they hope to not do all that much in the fall, but it does help to have a good punter play the field position battle. Especially because when you look at this team, last year it was all the defensive linemen. When we came into the spring game, all the defensive linemen got drafted. You got to replace those guys. Well, now you're having to replace, 3 offensive linemen, a couple wide receivers, running back, quarterback. So it's the defense that should really be the strength of this team. And really, I don't think a lot of times you're not going to talk about the defense as much. But you got 7 starters coming back, particularly that secondary should be very strong. And a lot of these new early enrollees, we've seen Savion Jackson a little bit today, Josh Harris, another blue chipper. That defense is not only veteran, but they added some really nice young freshmen as well. It should be very talented.
Well, I think, too, there's something to be said for the fact that in college, so in the NFL, I think that you can get away. You look at the Panthers when they made that Super Bowl run a few years back, you can get away with having a secondary that is sort of patchwork if you have a great defensive line. But I think in college, because the discrepancy with the hash marks, the way that teams are able to spread you out with all the personnel, and the fact that you're dealing with generally less experience, if you have a secondary that is full of veterans and you have some depth on the defensive line, maybe a little bit easier to create pressure on opponents than it might be at the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think, in NC State's situation, right now the ACC is going through Clemson. And
whole country's going through Clemson.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence.
You know what, Mike? Some would call it a tough neighborhood.
With Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, I think the best chance for NC State to win is going to be to slow him down. And where's it? The game will be in Raleigh this year, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
So you never know.
Your point's spot on though, because if you look at what Doran and Dave Huxtable did last year from a defensive standpoint, they said we're going to stack the box and make Trevor Lawrence beat us with throws. Well, it didn't work out very well. Trevor Lawrence is a very, very good quarterback. I think with that veteran secondary, maybe you can try that same tactic and see if it works out in a better fashion because you have the veteran players, because you have the depth to sort of spread out your defensive backs.
Just saw Devin Leary complete a nice pass to Josiah Provolone. Mike, what do you think about his ability to step up in the pocket there, deliver a strike?
Yeah, I think he's plenty athletic enough. There's plenty of quarterbacks that play a long time in the NFL that are way worse athletes than him. He can maneuver in the pocket. He can step up and make that throw, and that's really all you can ask. I mean, if they wanted him to be a zone read guy, then I think they would have brought in someone else. That's not who they brought him in here to be. They brought him in here to throw the football, and it's clear to me that he has elite arm talent for the college level.
The last 2 starting quarterbacks for NC State that have gone on to be pro, Ryan Finley is going to get drafted at some point. Finley and Jacoby Brissett, both transfers. And, we talk about the long history of QBU here, including Mr. Glennon here, and then before him, Russell and Rivers. But, we haven't seen Dave Doran with a homegrown recruit that's really stepped in. And not that that's a bad thing. I mean, you end up getting 2 NFL-caliber starters in Finley and Brissett. But I think that's something that Dave Doran would really love to see. Like, if Devin Leary can take the mental step this offseason and really grow into be a complete quarterback, that would change things because, not just his age and where he's a redshirt freshman, right?
And the same could be said for Matt McKay.
Of course,
as well.
for sure. But I think the upside here is, like Mike was saying with his arm. I mean, you saw that ball that was incomplete there. I mean, he threw that thing 170 miles an hour into that.
and that's the other thing that he's got to learn how to throw it with touch.
Yeah.
Not everything can be a bullet throw.
Right.
And that's part of him growing. I mean, I think you look at Matt. You look at Devin. Matt was an early enrollee. This is essentially the 5th time he's been installed this offense. This is Devin's 2nd time. So the understanding of the offense, the growth isn't going to be the exact same. But I think Matt has grown tremendously just from watching him in the fall. The few times he got into the end of games to now, you can see that he's more comfortable. He's going. He just looks more comfortable in the offense, and I think Devin's not quite there yet. But you see the arm talent.
We sort of take for granted too. Like, I mean, he did. You know, it's not like he's some 10-year NFL veteran, right? Like he just got thrust into college. Like
right.
He moved. He's a young kid, and you deal with all kinds of different stuff.
To me,
not to mention just football.
The transition from high school to college was more than college to the pros.
Really?
I mean, in high school, we were running 20 pass plays. Like there wasn't a whole lot to the offense. It was pretty basic. And then you get to the college level, and you're throwing all these new pass concepts. You have to really understand coverage, understand protection. When you're throwing hot, there's just so much more. And then when you get to the pros, it's just taken to another level. But when I was here, I mean, we were running more or less a basic version of the NFL offense. Actually similar to what I'll be playing in Oakland. It's the West Coast Coast offense, similar terminology. But I thought there was more of an adjustment from high school to college than college to the pros.
Really minimal verbiage you guys will be using in Oakland with John Gruden, right? He keeps his play calls simple, doesn't he?
I've been dove into Spider 2 wide banana.
That's right.
Yeah, we'll see what that's like, but I think you might have dialed it back a little.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it benefits – so, like, we were talking to these quarterbacks before the game, and Devin Leary said that, maybe more so this year than last year, the offensive coordinators and the quarterback coach, Kurt Roper, are asking them to actually read defenses and to come in and look at what the defense is presenting you, diagnose that, make some checks at the line, and then change what you're going to do. That's not a quick fix situation when you have a young quarterback. You're asking a lot of growth. But I almost wonder if it's a smart move from a long-term perspective to do that, because you're going to get gains down the road in 2020 and 2021 when they have that experience of reading the defenses, of seeing what coordinators are throwing at them, of seeing the different type of defenses you get from all these ACC teams. Do you think it's a smart long-term approach?
Yeah, I've sat in on a couple of Kurt Roper's meetings with these guys. I sat in when Eli Drinkwitz was running it, and they both do a tremendous job.
Sure.
But just speaking in more present term, yeah, Kurt's doing a great job with these guys, talking about progressions, 1 to 2 to 3, talking about coverage, pre-snap reads, pre-snap indicators, what coverage they're expecting to see, and just sitting on those meetings, you can tell Matt's the most comfortable. He's
Sure.
been in this offense. He's just further along, which is to be expected. It's definitely not a knock on Devin. He should be ahead in those departments, and Devin will catch up, but Matt's done a great job so far.
We get to see Bailey Hockman on this series. We haven't talked a whole lot about him yet. A lot of people interested in him, a 4-star recruit, the #1 QB out of junior college after he left Florida State. Adding him to the mix just makes this quarterback battle even more interesting, a guy of his pedigree.
Yeah, I think – and that's kind of one of the questions I have is how are they going to get all these guys reps? Because come the season opener, there's only going to be one guy that takes the field for that.
Yeah.
I don't know if they plan on rotating or what, but it's a big deal to get these guys reps because, Ryan Finley was clearly the guy. He was getting all those reps in the past. So this is the first time Matt McKay is getting reps with the ones, and then they got to find a way to get Devin and Bailey reps with them as well to see how they do with that first group.
Worth noting that Dave Doran did say in meeting with the media on Thursday, I believe, that they were open to the idea of playing multiple quarterbacks during the season. Now, we'll see how that goes, and it rarely works out outside of the Chris Leak, Tim Tebow style setup.
But a lot of times I think sometimes you have to see a guy in a real game situation.
No doubt.
Practice is one thing, scrimmage is another. It's a whole new ball game when you're playing in a real game. And, some guys shine when those lights come on and some guys kind of fold. So it may take that to find who their clear-cut guy is.
And I would –
We need to step aside for 60 seconds. We'll be back from the 2019 KL Spring Game after this. Back with Will Brinson, Mike Glennon, I'm Andrew Sanders. We welcome you back to the 2019 KL Spring Game. We now throw it down to the field to Aaron Summers.
I'm here with NC State's new. How do you bring a different mentality tonight?
What we always want to attack is
fans, don't forget that the Kids Dash will occur on Wayne Day Family Field after the conclusion of the 2019 KYAL Spring Game. Kids 8th grade age and under are invited out to the field to run a 20-yard dash into the end zone and score a touchdown. Those interested should report to the top of section 219 with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Participants will be asked to sign a waiver before they participate.
Hey, thanks, Aaron. All right, so one quarter in, guys. What do you think about overall thoughts of what we've seen so far?
Yeah, it's been a little bit of what we said. I think you've seen flashes of all the quarterbacks, but it's been hard to kind of get going. There's been tip balls. There's been sacks. But overall, this experience is still irreplaceable in that for guys like Matt, Devin, and Bailey, this is the first time playing in front of a crowd, really. I'm sure their high school games were never this big, and you can't replace these reps, and it's still good to see them get out there and move the ball around.
I mean, I think a lot of time, again, you talk to you prep for the show, for the broadcast, and you hear a message that is being sent, and I think everybody was very clear. The offensive line is not healthy, and I think it shows up in what you're seeing from the quarterbacks. It's just difficult when you have 3 new, all young quarterbacks dealing with backup offensive line against talented defensive linemen, and you can see it whether it's in the batted balls and or the sort of broken plays, and like Mike pointed out, we're learning things about these different quarterbacks. Whether it's we're finding out what these guys need to work on between now and the start of the season, right?
I think another thing that needs to be brought up is this is one practice. Like we can't overlook it. It is an important step to finding a guy, but it's not. These guys aren't going to win or lose this battle in just today, in just one throw. And I think that's what the coaches take the full landscape. This is a 15th practice, then they probably have about 30 practices in camp.
Are you telling Twitter not to overreact to the spring game?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I think can't overreact in these situations.
Bailey with a shot, and he's got a guy. Oh, man. It feels like the velocity from Bailey, maybe it's just watching between seeing Devin out there and seeing McKay and Bailey. It doesn't feel like they've got quite as much gas on the throws.
But at the same time, I think accuracy is more important than any of that. I mean, talk about Ryan Finley. This is a guy that, is going to get drafted highly, and he doesn't have the strongest arm. You watch players on Sunday, and there's plenty of guys that play at a very high level that don't have the strongest arm, and it is more about accuracy. It comes to a point where you have to have a strong enough arm.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about that.
I think that's a perfect ball placement right there. He put it on the outside shoulder. It didn't jump off his hands, but it was in perfect placement, and they get a first down.
Speaking of guys playing on Sundays, you being part of QBU, how much pride do you take in being part of that fraternity, and how special is that for you? You're going to be with the Raiders. You're going to see Phillip Rivers a couple of times this year, right, with the Chargers. How special is that for you guys?
Yeah, it really is something that I'm proud of to be part of, and I'm excited. We'll be adding one more to the mix this year with Ryan, and in locker rooms, there's always debates. There's always talking trash about colleges when your team is playing another, and I like to brag to the other quarterbacks that we have more quarterbacks in the league than anyone else, and they always say, well, I thought Russell went to Wisconsin. But I tell them, that's for a whole other discussion, but I'm like, I sat behind the guy for 3 years on the bench. The guy went to NC State. Anyway,
Believe me,
now we're going to have 5 quarterbacks.
Nice little scramble drill here by Bailey. Let's see if he can get some productive here. He's got to look.
He's got a man open.
Oh.
And overthrows Amezi.
It's a pretty good ball, though.
Yeah.
I think he gave him a chance.
Sure.
Just looked like Amezi didn't track it quite as well.
I'll tell you what's a positive quality out of that, too. And, again, I know it's a spring game, but that was a blown-up play. And he didn't lose his cool. He picked it up. He scrambled. He found a play on the run. And, there might be some of that this year. Not that the offense is going to want that to happen, of course, but when you have a lot of young guys and you have a lot of changeover on offense, you're going to need a guy who could potentially mitigate the damage by making smart plays when things don't go to the normal script.
And that's the reality of playing the quarterback position is those things are going to happen. And I think all three guys are capable of doing it. I think Matt and Bailey are a little better athletes than Devin, but Devin's more than capable. But in any situation or in any offense, there's going to be times where the play breaks down and a quarterback's going to have to make a play with his feet.
Nice wrap up there in space by Shaheem Battle.
He hit him on the numbers.
And a drop pass. Dylan Parham was the intended receiver. Looked like Hockman put it on the numbers there.
Well, that was a good job going through his progression right there. You saw him kind of work right to left. First read wasn't there, worked across the field, and that was a good ball. The receiver needs to make that play.
Yeah, you got to catch that ball. Fortunately, it's the spring game. No points scored. Oh no, we get some Chris Dunn action here.
There will be no rush on the field goals, but we will have field goal attempts. And obviously, Chris Dunn was prolific last year. He's a second-team All-ACC member, and really burst onto the scene for an NC State team that was, starving for a reliable kicker. They got one. He was 23 of 26 last year.
I think I'd rather have to follow a star quarterback than have to follow the NC State kicking game from pre-Dunn. I mean, yeah, look, and not to knock any of those guys who did their best and worked hard, but you have to wonder. I would wonder what could have been if they'd had a good kicking game in several situations, right? At Clemson is what I'm talking about.
I know what you're hitting on, but I know Kyle Bambard. He's a great guy.
I'm not knocking Bambard. I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking him at all.
Dunn made 21 field goals last year.
Look, the kicking game is really. I get that it's special teams and it gets thrown to the side a little bit with offense and defense. It's really important to have a good field goal kicker in college.
It is.
You can't put a price on it because so many times you see it come down to a situation where games are won or lost. Even we look at the college overtime. You're getting the possessions from the 25, and so you have to have that good field goal kicker in case things stall out. And if you have a guy, it just changes what you do on the field. When you're in certain positions, if you're in a deeper field goal range and you trust your guy, you can put some points on the board, or you can you don't have to worry about punting from your own 45.
Oh, without a doubt. I think that makes Dave Dorn excited. You get to the 39-yard line right there, and the kicker makes the field goal. That's a game changer. That could be the difference between wins and losses. And in college football, every win, it can be the difference between making it to the ACC championship or going to a bowl game, whatever it might be.
There's that arm. Whew. It just spins it, man. It just comes out real natural.
Looking for Eric Collins there. We saw him complete one just a moment ago, again to Josiah Provolone, who has a couple of catches. It's Chris Ingram defensively for the Wolfpack, changed from number 15 to number 7. We had a couple of number changes, so I want to kind of cover that just a little bit. Most notably, James Smith-Williams got the coveted, the honored number 1 jersey, which is something very special here at NC State, as this throw is a little behind Provolone. But remember, obviously, Jalen Samuels wore that number for a couple of seasons, and then Steph Lewis last year, just a guy who embodies hard work, that great work ethic, that leadership on this team. And James Smith-Williams, the latest guy to be recognized with that number 1 uniform.
Kind of interesting that the number 1 uniform appears to follow maybe I don't know about a strength, but 3 years ago you talk about the run game with J. Sam and Hines, and then last year you talk about the pass game. I know Steph Lewis got hurt, only ended up with 154 receiving yards, but you could sense seeing Steph at the pro day how excited all those guys are. Jacoby Myers, Kelvin Harmon, Ryan Finley, to see him back out there. They're really tight. It's a tight group that's leaving here.
What were your biggest takeaways from the NC State pro day?
I thought it was fascinating that the Giants wide receiver coach got out there and actually had Ryan Finley not in an attempt to see, I don't think, Ryan throw certain routes, but in an attempt to see Kelvin Harmon and Jacoby Myers and Steph Lewis run certain routes. They wanted to see how they operated against press man. He got in there and ran the drills against them, and they asked Ryan to throw certain things to see how they got off the break and to see how they worked in there. And 17 might be too high for the Giants to take Kelvin Harmon, but they're also picking high in the second round. And so, I think that's a team that just traded Odell Beckham, right? And they have Sterling Shepard. They have Evan Ingram. They're going to run that offense through Saquon Barkley. Part and parcel why they traded Odell is because they want Saquon to be the face and the guy who runs the offense. But I think they could use another big-bodied wide receiver, and a guy like Kelvin Harmon would really fit there. I think Jacoby Myers helped his stock a lot at the pro day.
Okay.
Slot receiver type. He ran 89.9% of his routes were out of the slot last year, but he's a guy who can offer some size at that position. It's so important. What percent, Mike, is nickel for defense? Is 65, 70% at this point?
I'd say even more.
Yeah.
So majority of the time, offenses are in what they call 11 personnel, so you're playing with 3 receivers, 1 tight end, and that calls for the defense playing nickel. So, I think Jacoby, everyone looks like they're looking for a slot right now. You look at free agency, and slots are getting paid the big money. Adam Humphries to Tennessee, Cole Beasley
$36 million
to the Bills.
Yeah. And Jamison Crowder to the Jets, too.
Right. So I think people are going to look for these slots because at the NFL level, it's all about converting third downs and staying on the field. And a lot of times those slots provide the best matchup against that nickel to get you that 5 to 8 yards that you need for those first downs.
Here's our glimpse at Bam Knight going up the middle, carrying Devon Graves for a little extra yardage after contact.
One other thing I'd say on that pro day very quickly is we see the shot down the field.
He's
nice
got
throw.
C.J. Riley
Woo.
inside the 10-yard line as McKay drops a dime.
It's a heck of a throw. Bill Belichick was there last year, and that sort of went viral, Belichick working out with all the defensive linemen. Belichick not there this year. That's because the owners' meetings, no coaches or GMs, technical GMs were there. But the Patriots did send Nick Caserio, sort of their football czar who is as close to a GM as they can come in a Bill Belichick-run organization. I think that says a lot about what NC State has done to develop these players and put them in situations that for 2 years in a row you've seen a top brass guy from the Patriots show up and get heavily involved.
And that's part of the reputation now that NC State has built, right, of putting guys the pack in the pros.
Yeah.
Not just out of the quarterback position, but all across the field.
Oh, I was looking at it last night, and I'll have to find it on my notes because I don't want to give you the wrong number. But when you look at the guys who have gone pro in recent years, it's pretty wild to look at. And there you go, nice run by Meyer.
McKay with the keeper, he'll score. And that is part of his game. We've talked a lot about Leary's arm, but part of what makes McKay really special is his ability to do that. Dave Doran has always preferred to have a more mobile quarterback.
Sure.
And Matt McKay certainly fits that build. He's a little more experienced as well. And, you can't hit him because he's in a green jersey, but no one was going to be able to hit him right there.
Yeah. And, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, too, when you have a mobile quarterback, it can really minimize some concerns about the passing game you have. You can operate maybe a less intricate passing game and be just as effective with a mobile quarterback, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think Matt definitely brings that to the table. My one thing with Matt is he's got to be careful of not taking too many shots.
Sure.
Obviously, he knows in this situation he's not going to get hit, but dating back to last year, watching him get in at some of the end of those games, Texas A&M game comes to mind. He gets in there, keeps the ball a couple times and takes some shots, and I don't know if his body's built to take those shots. So I'm sure after a few of those, he's gonna quickly learn he needs to get down.
So we've seen Devin Leary lead a touchdown drive. Now Matt McKay goes down and is able to lead a touchdown drive. Matt McKay's little brother is on the team. And a crazy story, one of the offensive linemen that is healthy, Timothy McKay, he's another one of these early enrollees. When he got to campus in January, he was still 16 years old.
That's insane.
That blows your mind.
His mom drop him off? Probably, actually. Maybe his brother.
He just got his.
He probably just got his license.
He just got his license. He doesn't have to worry about after 9 driving anymore.
That's right.
But you just think about that, making that transition. It's a big, like Mike was saying earlier, it's the biggest jump from high school to college, and then to be able to do that, obviously, 17 now, but turning 17 when you're in college and just making that transition, because part of the biggest jump for these early enrollees is not just getting in spring practice, obviously, but finding themselves like anyone that went to NC State, taking classes and learning how to balance all of that schedule.
Well, and look, football is a game of structure, and it's and I think one of the things that you've seen that Dave Doran has done, and I don't know if it gets enough publicity, but it should. He has these like life lessons things he does on like every Wednesday. Whether it's like etiquette classes or getting guys involved in the community, and they it doesn't get talked about because it's a football team, but they put a pretty big emphasis on grades in this program and schoolwork. And for if you show up and you're 16, if you came into a loosey-goosey program, I mean, things might get off the rails, right? But if you have the structure in there, that's how you can see those guys continue to develop too.
Real World Wednesdays.
That's what Real World Wednesdays. That's right.
Hard to say.
It is hard
but
to say.
It has been a great benefit. And guys that I've interviewed, over the years have said, I've learned so much just from, hearing a motivational speaker, kind of changing my perspective on things, all the way down to, fancy dinner etiquette.
Sure.
Because, you go to the NFL.
You got to know where that little fork is.
Mike, you been to a fancy dinner from time to time?
We did an etiquette dinner when I got into the NFL. That was part of.
Did you really?
Yeah.
In Tampa?
Yeah, in Tampa.
Shauna?
As a rookie, they took us to, I want to say it was Capitol Grill, and they did etiquette. I think, let me see, bread's on your left, drinks on your right, something like that.
The Capitol Grill, great wine selection.
Keon Lassane with the catch. Another one of these younger guys that we're excited to see, freshman from Lumberton, North Carolina. The wide receiver was a position that was so deep last year. They had some guys that they were redshirting that obviously didn't get to play. They felt really good about, and even more newcomers coming in this year.
Good job throwing it away there. I mean, it's a spring game, and he's not going to get hit, but you want to see.
It's another practice rep, right?
Right,
Yeah.
and that's what you could get frustrated in this. You keep getting flushed out of the pocket. You want to make a play because you want to, show what you can do. But that was a smart play right there. You ended in a punt, much better than throwing an interception.
So boom goes the punt. Again, no return, and a fair catch will be called by Eric Collins, and we'll take a 1-minute break. Back here at Carter-Finley Stadium with Mike Glennon, Will Brinson, and Aaron Summers. My name is Andrew Sanders. All right, it's 10-7 right now. Wolfpack leading NC State. That is the official score. I feel like it's my job to tell you the score. Really what that tells you is Chris Dunn made a nice long field goal, and both quarterbacks that I shouldn't say both because we've seen a good bit of Bailey Hockman, but Matt McKay, Devin Leary have both led touchdown drives. If you're just tuning in, that's what you've missed.
No, I mean, look, we got off to a slow start. I can't even keep track of what quarter it is. It's sort of a running clock, but there was I think it's the second quarter.
Second quarter.
Yeah, there we go. That's why you're the play-by-play guy, and I just babble on about the Giants and other stuff. I think that we got off to a slow start here. Hello. That's a little burst up the middle.
Little daylight.
Wow.
And they're not going to catch him.
Bam,
Donovan
bam.
Knight.
Hello. That was a nice run. He got through that hole and then cut outside about as well as you could ask a running back to do. My goodness. And that's why you want superstar high school players on your roster.
That was some real speed right there.
Look at this burst and the cut outside. My goodness. And again, it's a spring game, but those dudes are trying to catch him.
Yeah.
And they don't have a prayer.
Southern Nash's all-time leading rusher had over 5,000 yards coming out of high school. A top 30 recruit in North Carolina. Part of Dave Doran's plan all along is, he says, I want to put up a fence around the state of North Carolina.
Yep.
I don't think he's done a better job than this year, this incoming class, with the number of not just high-level recruits, but high-level North Carolina recruits that they have gotten. And
I was
certainly Bam is one of those guys.
I was sitting up last night, doing research, deep dive research into 247 recruiting rankings. Because what else would you do on a Friday night in April? Welcome to my late 30s. But looking at the recruiting that Dave Doran has done in terms of North Carolina guys, it is stunning. So we talk about the 16 guys, right, from North Carolina. That
are just the early enrollees.
Right. And we're talking about four 4-stars and 12 3-stars, I believe. And you go back to 2018, 3 4-stars, 6 3-stars. I'm talking about all North Carolina guys. I rolled it back to like 2012, 2011, 2010. I mean, I think Rob Crisp was the lone 5-star in 2010, back when you guys came in. But, I mean, the numbers here are just startling. You're talking about a total of, in 2012, 1 3 and 4-star. In 2011, 3 3 and 4 stars. And I'm not knocking. The program was great back then. But I think what we're seeing now from Dave Doran and the staff is a much more aggressive approach to modern recruiting, and it's resulted in a boom of 4-star and 3-star guys from the state of North Carolina. And, you can't go, if you're NC State, you can't go to Texas and take all the talent. It's hard. Chuck Amato did a great job of going down to Florida and creating a pipeline there, but that's difficult to sustain when you have FSU and you have Florida and UCF.
Well, and just in general,
well.
there's so much talent here in the state of North Carolina
Exactly.
that if you get some of the top talent in the state, you're going to be, a 9-10 win program every year in and year out. It's just that simple.
Were you the 2010 class?
2008.
2008? Okay. Oh, I didn't even go back and look at your year then. I got tired.
But just another story to hit on that kind of the North Carolina recruiting is when I was in Tampa my last 2 years, the quarterback coach was a guy named Mike Bajakian, who was offensive coordinator at Tennessee, University of Tennessee, before he came. And he said, I guess Charlotte's kind of a main spot for Tennessee to recruit. And he said they were going in there a lot and they were losing guys to NC State. So I think that kind of speaks volumes to this coaching staff and how they're kind of trying to, mark their territory in the state, in Charlotte, Raleigh, all around to claim those guys in. You see it this year, I get more than ever.
Charlotte, think about Chris Leak going to Florida. You would always see these top guys from those schools in Charlotte end up.
Jalen Samuels came from Charlotte.
Absolutely.
Turned out to be pretty good.
But you saw for years you would see maybe Charlotte wouldn't mind as much, or even the eastern part of the state where a top recruit could be wooed by ECU. We had Carolina was doing a lot of recruiting over there. And now I just think that there's too much talent to ignore the in-state stuff. And part of the goal for this program is to brand itself as the preeminent football school in North Carolina. And I think they've done that successfully over the past 3 years.
You look at this recruiting class, and there's no doubt where the top players in the state of North Carolina want to play their college football.
Right. NC State. They want to come and play in the Carter.
And so Zonovan Knight, a big part of that. We see that exciting burst from him. He has drawn some comparisons. He doesn't have necessarily the elite track speed that Naheem Hines had,
Sure.
Another North Carolina guy from Garner, North Carolina.
Garner's out.
Now with the Indianapolis Colts.
I think he's hanging out in Garner this offseason.
Yeah. Well, Zonovan Knight has drawn comparisons because of that elite speed, though. Not the track speed, but still, with pads on the field, he's pulling away.
Well, he showed it to us.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's drawn that comparison. That breakaway run is, again, spring game, you take it with a caveat, but when you see a guy with that kind of burst and that kind of lateral quickness and the ability to read, with that sort of vision, the holes and to get outside, that's a guy who can be a game-changing running back for you, even against ACC defenses.
Keon Lassane with another catch, true freshman, another top 50 guy out of the state of North Carolina, played his high school ball at Butler.
And I think when you look at the recruiting, why NC State has done so well in recent years is, let's not kid ourselves, when guys want to be recruited, they want to be recruited to go to the NFL. Yeah. And NC State has done that lately. And you could go to almost any position on the field, and there's a guy that this coaching staff has developed and produced as an NFL player.
That's a great point.
And developed is the key word there, because you're going to get your 5-star guys that come in and make the NFL. I'm talking to one right now, right? But you're also going to have your guys like a Bradley Chubb or like a Garrett Bradbury, 2-3-star guys, and that development has been key.
I talked to D'Antonio Burnett last offseason, and it's really interesting to hear like some of this. That I think that the general public idea of what goes on in a football weight room is like loud music and dudes like slamming the bench press over and over again. But what they're doing in there is straight up sports science. It's crazy how in depth they are. They monitor these guys throughout the week to make sure they're maximizing their hydration and that they hit peak levels going into Saturday. They're constantly testing, your analysis and stuff like that to make sure that guys are properly hydrated. D'Antonio Thunder, likened it to a car, right? You can't redline a car Monday through Friday and then expect the car to operate at a high level on Saturday. You're going to wear out the engine. And so what they want to do is get these guys operating at peak performance on Saturdays. And additionally, they're looking, when they go out recruiting, they're not just looking for guys who are top targets across the state. They have certain body types for certain positions and certain skill sets for certain positions and certain athletic traits for certain positions they're looking for. And they target those guys and they understand that they can develop them. Look at a picture of Bradley Chubb when he got here. He wasn't the the 6th overall pick or the 5th overall pick or whatever he was. I think Denver was 6, right? They develop these guys and they understand how to build these younger players into legit pro prospects as a result.
Speaking of which, Mike, how excited are you to go up against the Broncos a couple of times this season? Have Bradley Chubb bearing down on you?
Yeah, it's when you got Von Miller on one side and Bradley Chubb on the other. Unfortunately, last year in Arizona, Josh Rosen found out how that went. It's Thursday night, and it was not a pretty sight.
Oh my God, that was like
43-8
or something. That was a bloodbath.
He got beat up pretty good, but that's becoming the NFL. The defensive ends.
Oh, it's a dangerous throw. Almost got it in there. Get picked?
They're going to rule incomplete.
Oh.
Rule it incomplete, but Devon Graves is saying, hey, I got a foot down.
But going back to Thunder and the strength program here, when I was in school, Thunder was an assistant.
Yeah.
And to see him now
when I was in school, he was a lineman.
And just to see those guys when I'm in there working out, I mean, he does a phenomenal job. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for the success that this program's had lately, because you look at these guys and they just look like they belong, but they're also just physically, they can compete with the Clemsons, the Florida States of the world.
Doubt.
And just the program that he's put together here, they're not only strong, but they're flexible. They can bend, and
he does like weekly yoga and stuff.
Right, and that's the thing that I think a lot of people don't realize is they think it's all about putting on as much weight on the barbell and benching and squatting, and that's part of it. But he's power cleaning, and these guys are doing it with the right technique, and they're getting in the right positions that translate onto the football field. And I can't speak highly enough of Thunder and the job he's done here.
Hey.
Talking a little bit about Bradley Chubb. Pretty special moment here last year as they retired and honored his number. Great atmosphere here at Carter-Finley Stadium as he was welcomed back. Big hug from Coach Doran. And his number always up there. Pretty good number 9s. Defensive ends here, obviously. Mario Williams, Bradley Chubb. A couple of guys terrified, Mario terrified NFL quarterbacks for the last decade or so, and now Bradley Chubb is picking up right where he left off.
Yeah, I feel like I know they want to save these numbers for recruits that, there's some recruit out there that wants to be number 9, but when you got 2 guys wearing number 9 in their jersey retired, I feel like that's got to be like, that's it.
That's it.
Didn't Bradley have to go ask Mario if he could use it, though? Well, didn't he have to,
I think there was something going on where they were doing that along with Russell in 16.
Oh.
But I don't know if they still do that anymore. I'm not sure.
I
remember they did do that a few years ago.
Yeah. There was I think it is a situation where you do have to sort of maybe get a blessing to use the number, but I'm with you. Now, I think you can say yes, you can use the number, but you have to be a legit prospect or like a legit you have to stay there 4 years or whatever. I don't know. There needs to be something built in if you're going to let somebody use your number. You also got to get careful about retiring too many numbers.
No, I agree.
Then all of a sudden,
we're talking about first pick of the draft, talking about 5th pick of the draft. These guys aren't going to be coming along every day now.
No. I would say once in a lifetime, but maybe twice in a lifetime, right?
Right.
Devon Graves nearly with that interception right there. He couldn't quite keep the foot in on the sideline, and then that one over the middle, one that he wishes he had back. And so it'll be a turnover here to now Devin Leary.
Offensive lineman, a little banged up there. You don't want to see that.
It'll be good here to see if we can get a 2-minute drill for these quarterbacks. I think that's a time where, guys can really rise or some guys kind of crumble in those situations.
You especially like to see how, maybe a guy operates. That is some spin on that ball all the time. You like to see how he operates, running that no huddle with that tempo style thing.
There we see Leary
Leary
able to throw
wants
it,
he wants
all the
him to
way
do it.
across the field.
He's asking for it.
10-yard gain, and an NC State.
So no trouble, being able to throw something out towards the boundary.
I don't think there's a spot on the field he can't hit with that arm.
No, there's definitely not. The thing that he's going to continue to work on and grow with is putting balls with touch.
Reading
Intercepted.
the defense.
That's Brock Miller. And the linebacker.
He stared him down the whole way.
We saw Brock Miller step up last year when Jermaine Pratt got injured.
Just glaring at him. Oh. That is what we call a freshman mistake.
That is sometimes the problem when you have a big arm, right?
Same
Just
thing
trying
right
to
there.
fit in a tight window.
That was kind of the linebacker dropping off, and his read right there is the cornerback, and he's throwing the smash concept where you're trying to high-low the corner, and the corner did grab the hitch route. That's just a ball he has to throw with a little more touch or lead him to the sideline because that safety was pretty wide.
Well, and the part of the problem, too, is like it's something he's going to have to develop, but, if you've got a guy like that and you're going up against a Florida State or Clemson, or any of these ACC defenses, Boston College, tough defenses, and this the coordinator and the coach realize that they can run a bunch of zone, like a zone blitz against you. You can easily confuse your young quarterback in that spot, and that's how you turn a drive into 6 the other way very quickly.
Without a doubt. He's still a redshirt freshman. He's 19 years old. Those things are going to happen, and that's just part of his growth.
Bam able to break a tackle. He rumbles for about 9.
I know the quarterbacks are the headline story here. Bam's the big takeaway coming out of this. You could see it. He's got the burst.
And we wondered how much we would really be able to see because from both the quarterbacks and the running backs, and talking to Dave Doran just a couple of days ago, he was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to play this game if I don't have any offensive linemen.
Right.
It'll have to be more of like a 7-on-7 scrimmage.
Yep.
So with all 5 starters out on the offensive line and still to be able to see, these quarterbacks be able to step into some throws and then
oh, my goodness.
Good wrap-up tackle
This
there.
kid's a player.
But Bam Knight is really impressive.
And look, Will Dabbs, right, is the other guy who's getting a lot of the carries. Dabbs.
We've seen Trent Penix a little bit
Penix
as well.
Too. You can just see a different game speed from Knight than those other guys. And part of that is being a more of explosive back than a grinder. But you can tell he has the burst to get around the corner and to take off. And
that's something that's really getting people excited is Bam Knight and then obviously the 1-2 combo with Ricky Person.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the most exciting thing about that is you're looking at a freshman and a sophomore. So we have 3 more years of the two of them together, barring, someone being talented enough to leave early. And
if somebody's good enough to go to the NFL as a running back as a junior, that means that you had a monster season and you take it.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but we're just saying, 3 to 4 years with these guys, and it's exciting for a Wolfpack
We've seen a
fan.
shift in the NFL over the last decade or so where you used to have a lot of workhorse running backs.
Yeah.
And now everyone has 2, sometimes 3 running backs.
without a doubt.
And we're seeing that in the college game as well where, if you have a 1,000-yard rusher, that's tremendous, but you still need somebody to change the pace. When Naheem was running for 1,000, it was Reggie Gillespie who was changing the pace.
Look at the first running back who off the board in this upcoming draft. It's going to be Josh Jacobs, no doubt. He has pretty minimal wear and tear for an Alabama running back, right? Used to Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, Eddie Lacy, all these guys who grind out 75 carries a game in the fourth quarter alone. Jacobs not the same style, and I think that any running back, and we saw it too with Jalen Samuels and Naheem Hines making the leap into the league, is they're not drafted. Naheem Hines was never going to be drafted to be the
every down guy.
Yeah, the every down guy. Just that's not. I don't think that's his game. He can run between the tackles, and he can run between the tackles very well, but he's ultimately going to be a guy who you put out in screens, put out in line up in the slot sometimes, tons of stuff.
How about that chase down speed from Terrell Dawkins, another big-time youngster coming in. Dawkins, freshman from Concord. He went to Cox Mill High School, and again, Matt McKay, he's pretty fleet of foot.
Shout out to Concord. That's where my wife's from. Love Concord. Look, these quarterbacks should be glad that the green jersey rule is in effect.
But I'll tell you right now, that dude's getting cussed out for touching the quarterback right there.
You think so?
He pushed him in the back right there.
Yeah, and then
he pulls a hammy.
That's all it's taking.
Yeah,
That's all.
He's going to quickly learn as a freshman. Don't ever do that again.
Yeah, maybe some polite, firm words, you think?
Maybe. I don't know if there's polite in the word choice that the coaches have for him.
I don't think so either.
Just a minute, 6 seconds left to go. We got a timeout on the field, and so a lot of good things to see from this spring game. Again, the defense has, for the most part, played very well.
Yeah.
I know we've been talking mostly on the offensive side of the ball because that's where most of the focus is for the spring game. It's tough to read too much into it.
Right.
We've seen some encouraging signs.
What Mike said is spot on. I mean, look, and you see these guys that we put up the quarterbacks. I mean, the reality is in our mind, we see this as a very big inflection point because it's the single time when the broadcast is on and the fans are in here and the band's playing. As far as these coaches are concerned, this is another in a line of practices. I mean,
Yes.
this is they understand they have to dress it up a little bit because the fans are out here and they like doing it. I mean, they like to showcase the young guys and to get inside Carter-Finley and to play and raising money for a good cause and all that. But it is part of the progression that gets you to the first game of the season, right?
And speaking of that great cause, all donations go to the K-Yao Cancer Fund. And in the past, they have, this had been a free event, but they asked people to make donations. Actually did not take cash donations here at Carter-Finley Stadium, everything being done online. So if you're one of those right now that's watching on the ACC Network Extra and you want to donate, you can go to gopack.com, find the link to donate, and it's not something where you have to be here in the stadium to make a difference. Obviously, it's a tremendous cause, and if you're willing and able to do so, we certainly encourage you to make a donation.
You should set up a Venmo account. GoPack Venmo. Oh, nice throw.
Here's Angeline. Strong hands for the tight end, and he scores.
Good job to get that over the linebacker.
I was. And that's what fits Matt's game a little more. He throws with a little more touch.
Yep.
And on throws like that where there's a linebacker dropping defensive end.
Oh, yeah, it was at the end. You're right. Yeah.
Then you have to throw with some touch where. And that's not to say that Matt has a weak arm by any means. No. It's just that he plays with a little more touch, and everyone's different. And I'm sure at times he wishes he could throw like Devin, and at times
I'm sure at times Devin wishes he could. Yeah.
Right. So it's finding that balance of the two.
That's a low snap. Nice kick by Dunn there.
Well, they call it a catchable ball.
Exactly.
It's a very catchable ball.
Yeah. Well, but look, when you're playing, when you make the leap into college, of course in the NFL too, when you get in the red zone, I mean, there's a reason why the red zone stats are so important, and the reason why red zone is more difficult. It's compressed.
Yeah.
There's less space. There's more. It's much harder to make a mistake, and that's a ball where if, let's say, Devin Leary fires one in fast, maybe that's an interception. You're taking 6 off the board. You're losing the momentum, and for a team like NC State this year, I really think it's going to be paramount that they don't have those. I don't want to call them boneheaded mistakes, but unforced errors.
Well, just in general, the guy who makes the fewest mistakes is going to be the guy that plays, right, Mike?
Exactly. I think it's all about finding completion, executing, and that's taking care of the football and finding the open guy. Sometimes you can overcomplicate it, but the end goal is to complete the pass. And when you complete the pass, you move the ball down the field, and that leads to touchdowns. And right there on that play, Matt, I'm assuming, noticed the blitz, knowing he has to get the ball out of his hands quick. That's why the defensive end was dropping into coverage, and he was on time and hit the guy right in stride, and that's what it's all about.
Gotta like, too. At least anecdotally, I'd have to go back and look at all the plays, but I think George McDonald's doing a really good job with this red zone calling today. We've noticed when they've gotten close, they've shown a real ability to generate plays that offered these young quarterbacks fairly easy opportunities to make the throws. Now, I mean, again, what Matt McKay did there was a very nice throw. Like, that could have been to get it to lob it over that defensive end and put it in that catchable spot is difficult. But certainly they've been set up for success in the red zone so far.
And talking to both, quarterbacks, McKay and Leary, both really sharp guys. McKay's majored in aerospace engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's a little bit ahead in terms of the amount of time he's been in the program.
And then he's got another brother who's maybe coming for grad school that's like a biomedical engineer or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Older brother.
What are you,
so
younger quarterback, pal? Get out of here.
The McKay family, just a really, really bright bunch. They've got another older brother as well. But, Timothy's the guy who was 16 when he came in. And then older brother Travis is graduating from UMBC. He got accepted into NC State for grad school. So
that's
he's going to
awesome.
be here in the fall, potentially watching his younger brother Matt as the starting quarterback. We'll see.
Pretty cool stuff there,
But
right?
aerospace engineer and vying for the starting quarterback position. That's pretty impressive stuff from Matt McKay.
Every single one of those McKay kids has more degrees than the entire Brinson clan. We have Dos with a Spanish minor.
See what Hockman can do here with less than 30 seconds. Throw a little low, but in a safe
He
spot
looks a
over
little
the middle.
frustrated.
Yeah, you can tell he's a little frustrated. I think, what we were kind of hitting on earlier with Dunn as a kicker, these are the situations. You get the ball back with 45 seconds and a half, and the ball starts on the 25. That's 2 explosive plays away from being in field goal range if you can be consistent from 50+. And those 3 points going into halftime, bring momentum. And
let's say hypothetically you're down 24-7 with the ball.
Right.
You cut it to 24-10.
and you get the ball, maybe
two
you're getting the
touchdown
ball,
game feels different.
after the half. And
No, I agree with you completely. I think there's a pretty good chance that NC State. Look, we don't know how this team. I think this team is very much not a mystery, but I don't think we're going to know until we see the product on the field. Whereas the last few years, we sort of had an idea because there were so many veterans at the skill positions. We knew what was going to show up on the field in that first game. I don't know that we have a full idea of what the identity of this team is yet, and I don't think we'll know until the fall.
We've got halftime here at Carter-Finley Stadium, and Aaron Summers is got a halftime interview with Coach Roper.
I'm here with NC State quarterback coach Kurt Roper. First year on the job, and you walk right into a quarterback competition. What has McKay, Leary, and Hockman shown you that makes this competition so tight?
Well, they're all talented guys. They can all throw the football, and college football, if you can't throw it at a high level, it's hard to be successful on offense. So these guys can throw it. They're competitive. They don't mind coming to work every day and trying to be a quarterback. So they're fun to work.
If you didn't know, this is Quarterback University. What can you do to continue to develop NFL talent here at NC State?
Well, the first thing is recruit at a high level, and this place recruits itself. I mean, such a great fan base, such a great game day environment. I'm really appreciative of being a part of this. And so my job is to go out and find the best guy I can that can help us win football games. But this system right here teaches guys how to play quarterback.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. More on QBU here, and obviously with Will Brinson and Mike Glennon, a member of QBU. This has been an incredible run. Phillip Rivers here in the early 2000s on to Russell Wilson, Mike Glennon, then Jacoby Brissett. 4 guys now in the NFL, and looking to add a 5th. And again, that's got to be just such a special fraternity for you guys. What's it like when you end up playing one of those teams? You see those guys pregame, postgame?
Yeah, it is really cool. I know Phillip the least out of all of them, but before and after games, we were always sure to say hello to each other. And actually, the only person I've ever done it for or asked for a jersey for, I asked Phillip. I was hesitant to do it, but my wife convinced me to do it. So, one day I hope in my house I'm going to have more or less a QBU wall
That's cool.
Of all the jerseys. I still need to get Russell's, Jacoby's, and Ryan's, but I know those guys better. And, I've seen Russell the past couple of years, saw him 2 times this year being in the same division as him. And then Jacoby, just from his time here at NC State and crossing paths with him, it's a good group of guys. And I think we're all, proud to, say that we're part of this group. It's
an incredible run. I mean, it's ridiculous. I came to Raleigh in 1999, and so, basically was at State for the Rivers run. You don't get 4 NFL caliber quarterbacks at one school, basically back to back, very often.
No, most schools haven't had 4 in their history play in the NFL.
Yeah.
All right, we've got to take a quick break here at halftime. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes on the ACC Network Extra. And we welcome you back to the 2019 KYAL Spring Game, where our score, the Wolfpack 24, NC State 7. And now we have a special video to show you an integral part of this NC State Wolfpack football program, Coach Thunder.
They call him Thunder Dan because of hits like that.
Well, me being a former player here, I really felt like I had to connect with the guys and touch the guys mentally. So it was my job to really try to get the guys to buy into our way of doing things and helping them understand that they represent something way bigger than themselves. And then on the strength and conditioning side of it, I wanted all guys to be more dynamic, more explosive. I truly believe that you create your staff and your program, you create those guys inside that rack. Doing squats and doing explosive exercises as a clean. We do a lot of flexibility and mobility work. We do that every single day. I think one of the most important things to development is, which means you can push guys, but at some point you have to pull back a little bit, and then also do things to help guys recover. If they can recover, they're going to be able to push even more. But if you burn the candle on both ends, that candle, it goes away real fast. We have a great group of guys that come from different backgrounds in strength and conditioning. I'm a firm believer in getting a bunch of guys that have a lot of different strengths. When I decided to put together a staff, I didn't want to have a bunch of guys that were exactly like me. Coach Rubbers does a great job doing the athletic performance side of things with our catapult, urine-specific gravity testing, checking the hydration levels, and things like that. We check body weights every single day. Coach Solomon, he does a phenomenal job of being another voice when I step out of the room. He's very smart. He does a great job of meeting with our trainers every single day. And then also we have Coach Taylor, who does a phenomenal job of working with the long-term injury group. Him and Coach Solomon work with those guys during practice, or we're out at practice, just keeping things under control. They're inside working with the long-term injured guys. And then Coach Jadwin Bignon is a guy that I hired on from Catawba. He's a guy that has a lot of experience. He's a guy that's very mindful and is another set of eyes for me as well. So once again, just a great collective group of guys that do a great job of working together and serving our players.
All the way through it. The four captains for the Wolfpack and trying to put them on top here. Catch is made out by Thayer Thomas, breaks some tackles, and is in the end zone. Touchdown, Wolfpack.
Well, I came here with a chip on my shoulder. I felt like I was sort of under-recruited out of high school. No one gave me an offer. I didn't have an offer for anywhere. I didn't even get a preferred walk-on from like the smaller schools either. My junior year I got hurt, played 6 games because I broke my collarbone, so I didn't really have a lot of film. I came into high school 5'5", 120 pounds. So I was already behind the spectrum of the recruiting. I got to my senior year, I had some baseball offers. I was just gonna play my last year of senior high school football and just have fun with it, you know? I had Coach Holt, Torrey Holt as my receiver coach, Dwayne Washington as my head coach, and they thought I was a really good football player. I didn't really get to prove myself the year before because I got hurt. So they just told me to go out there and play the best of my ability. I had a really good senior season. We were playing Sanderson one game my senior season. Coach Dorn comes to the game to watch my brother, Aleem, Trent Penix, Ricky Person, and some other guys that were playing. And you know, I've had like 300-yard games leading up to that game, and I knew, you know, if I just go out there and keep doing what I'm doing, maybe I'd catch his eye. And I'd go out there and have over 100 yards again and a touchdown maybe or two, I forget. But I just know walking up to the locker room after the game, you know, Coach Holt brings the phone over. Coach Dorn texted him about the game and was like, I was impressed by everybody. That number 5 really stuck out. Who is he? What's his name? You know, does he have any offers? And Coach Holt was like, he's a 3-sport athlete. He's a hard worker. And then I just started from there. I gained almost 20 pounds. I gotten a lot faster and it's gotten a lot smarter. My football IQ's gone up a lot. Just really took advantage of my redshirt year. I played scout team, went against really good guys on there, and I just felt like that helped me, you know, turn into the player I am today and the player I'm trying to be.
Finley. Caught! Thomas, what a catch!
Just to have coaches trust means they believe in you and they know that you can get the job done, and they wouldn't put you out there if they didn't feel like you couldn't do it. So I feel like having the coaches trust is one of the biggest things when playing college football, knowing that they think that you can go out there and play, and that gives you, you know, confidence to go out there and make plays. So I know Coach Doran had a meeting with me before the first game. He could tell I was like a little nervous, and he was like, you know, if we didn't trust you, we wouldn't put you out there, so you have really nothing to worry about. Just go out there and play the best of your ability, and that's all you can do.
Thayer earned Ryan's trust with that first catch, right? And our slot's such an integral part in our pass game, and not having Jacoby in there, I mean, it was inevitable he was going to get opportunities, and then where it went from there. And he took advantage of the opportunity. And I think for a quarterback to know that he can trust a wideout and throw him a tough ball and that he's going to fight to get it.
After the first time I scored, it felt like a dream. I don't even remember the feeling. I can't explain the feeling. But the second time, everything sort of slowed down for me because I had already did it before. It was one of the best feelings I've ever had. It was just everything coming together, like, you know, all the hard work and like to be able to score the first touchdown of the season for the NC State, a walk-on, a local kid. It just meant everything to me. And I just give all the credit to all my coaches and people that helped me throughout this process. You know, it was just a great feeling to be able to score that first touchdown and even have 2 touchdowns right now. And I'm trying to, you know, keep the push and continue to have the success I've had in the first 2 games.
Thayer Thomas, really a remarkable story of an underdog, a guy who was, you know, looked over, wasn't really highly recruited. Coach Doran there to see some other guys, some guys that are on this NC State team, and saying, hey, who is that guy? And it's not bad when Torrey Holt's your wide receivers coach, right? But he says he's a 3-sport athlete, and I tell you what, you know, working with NC State baseball, I've gotten the chance to see Thayer Thomas, who has been juggling 2 sports. The guy's got really good bat speed. I mean, he can play baseball as well. So he's
got a touchdown today, too.
He's got a touchdown today.
You wonder how some of these guys slip through the cracks like this. You know, he's a starting receiver. You know, it wasn't like it, unless he just matured late or something, but he's clearly a guy that looks like he deserved a scholarship right out of high school.
And Coach Doran was able to evaluate and see that talent and quickly, you know, be able to highlight it and say, this is a guy I want to get. Speaking of Coach Doran, Aaron Summers is down with the head coach of the Wolfpack right now.
A lot of new coaches on the staff this year, a lot of coaches in new positions. How have they come together over the spring?
You know, it's been fun working with these guys. There's great chemistry. They're excited to be here. I know they like the players they're working with, and it brought a lot of energy and a lot of ideas to the staff. It's been great.
You had nearly 20 early enrollees, one of those freshman Bam Knight who scored a 73-yard touchdown today. How have they impressed you so far?
You know, they're very serious young men. They came here early for a reason. They wanted to learn the offense, get ahead academically, get with our strength staff and start developing, and we've seen that with all of them. And some of them are further along than others, but they're all doing really well. It's great having them here, and they've jumped right in. They blended in well with our team, and they're competing.
You've always spoken about building a legacy here at NC State. You've been to 5 straight bowl games. You're 11-5 in the ACC over the past 2 seasons. How can you continue to build on that success?
You know, I think it's just being true to who you are. You know, every day's an opportunity, trying to be the best me I can be as a coach, trying to help them be the best them they can be as players and as men and students, holding them accountable, you know, and not letting our standards go down, just trying to raise it up every year. And these guys are all in on that.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks a lot. Go Pack.
Andrew.
And thank you, Aaron. With the head coach of the Wolfpack, Dave Doran, now in his 7th season. You know, she asked him about all those early enrollees, and it's amazing. You got 19 guys enrolling early, 16 of them freshmen from the state of North Carolina. Mike, what kind of a difference does that make for a player, the difference coming from high school? You said that the jump is so difficult, being able to enroll early versus just getting here in the fall.
I think it's a huge advantage on a lot of different levels, starting with the football aspect of they learn the playbook. They get a whole, you know, extra 15 practices, 15 times of installing, you know, of meetings installing that offense, another 15 of watching the film, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And then also you get the extra 6 months in the weight room with Thunder. I mean, that's a big difference. And then lastly, just adjusting to the college life when I don't know, I guess it's only going to be a couple of these guys that actually come in July or June, whenever they enroll for the summer session. But they're just going to be so far ahead in everything. They're going to know, you know, what being in college is like, where to go, what class is like, and
do you have a feel for the campus?
Right,
you know
a feel for campus.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you feel like you're home, and that makes a difference. Like once you, I mean, even from like a non-football perspective, it matters to feel comfortable somewhere and to start to feel like you know where you're going and know what you're doing.
And also from the academic side. I mean, you get, and you're taking, I don't know how many credits, probably 12 credits right now. There's no reason you shouldn't graduate early. And, if you're serious about your academics, go on and get your master's, whatever it might be. But
if this is where, if you weren't humble, you'd point out that you took like 12 hours of you knocked out a semester in like one summer. But it is true. You can set yourself up to make the fall easier, right? By coming in, you hammer out a couple classes, you lighten your workload for the fall, and then you can really focus in on football and training and all that stuff without being overwhelmed by trying to figure out what Edgar Allan Poe is saying about something in English 101.
With that being said, the spring of your summer year of high school is also a really good
Pretty
time
fun
too.
time.
It's your last time with all your buddies you grew up with. So there are
another one.
There are some things that these early enrollees are missing out on, but as far as their future and what's best, it's hard to argue against this.
I would have a hard time saying, and I don't want to knock. I'm not knocking Devin Leary at all. I think you can see the talent is there. I think that it's pretty obvious. I mean, and look, the season's a long ways away. I think if they had to name a starter after this game, it would pretty obviously be McKay at this point, right? I mean, like I just feel like you see the flashes, and you can tell maybe he'll get there mentally, and maybe it'll all change over the summer. We'll see. The difference in the ability to minimize mistakes versus you can tell Devin is still struggling to understand coverages and to see guys dropping. That's something you got to master before you can run a college offense.
And that's just part of the whole process.
Sure.
Kind of hit on it earlier, but this is Matt's 5th time going through between spring and fall.
Yep.
And this is Devin's only 2nd time. So, he does look more Matt looks more comfortable right now, but I would have expected that coming into today.
How long did it take you into your college career before you really felt comfortable?
I would say about the time where Matt's at now.
Sure.
That's where everything. The first summer, it's like the speed feels overwhelming. You're almost guessing out there where to go with the ball, and then
here comes that
the second, the spring, and then the fall. It all starts coming together. I would say this is about the point my redshirt sophomore year.
Yeah.
Going into that redshirt sophomore year is where I felt the most comfortable.
Bam's going to flirt with 200 rushing yards today. He's at unofficially. Oh, another drop ball. Ooh, better be careful. Is that?
It's Josh
Harris. Yeah, God, he is
44.
enormous. Good God.
That's a guy that's an early enrollee.
Yeah.
He should be graduating high school in just a couple of months.
I mean, I looked that big getting out of high school too, but for a different reason. Like, I mean, it's involved a light beverage or two.
Does your son watch Moana?
Yeah, my son does love Moana. Yeah.
If you watch,
I know. He looks just like Maui. He's like, "You're welcome." Have you watched Moana?
I have.
Oh, Moana's great, man. That's a good point. He looks. Can we nickname him Maui? I mean, like, I feel like he does look just like him. The hair too. Wow. I mean, these guys are. It's crazy the difference between even 5 and 6 years ago, the size of these kids coming into college versus what you would see.
I think that might be genetics.
That could be genetics.
This is a rare. I mean, he is wide. Those 4s look like they could be 2 separate jerseys. I mean, that is a load right there.
I mean,
one of the top recruits in the state of North Carolina for a good reason.
If he's on the field early and he can play, I mean, this is a guy. I mean, he's going to plug some holes in the run game.
I mean, he can take up 2 linemen. He's a big
my
dude.
goodness.
McKay able to get loose.
Get down.
Finds a lot of green grass.
See, that's what you were talking about earlier, Mike. I know you don't have to slide because you know you're not getting hit. You try to keep running between those 2 dudes, you get your head knocked off.
Well, he knows.
I know, but I look
just
back
teasing the defensive backs
to make an example of another member of QBU. I think one of the reasons that Russell Wilson has played and thrived so much longer in the NFL than a guy who was drafted in the same class, Robert Griffin III, is one of those guys is an adult male who knows how to slide, and the other is a 25-year-old who has no idea how to slide.
Speaking of Josh Harris, came through, big hit on Bam Knight. You think about, Aleem McNeil was an impact freshman last year.
Yeah.
Big guy up the middle. Now you can throw Harris along with McNeil, along with we've seen Savion Jackson make a couple of nice plays today. One of the big-time recruits, one of the only early enrollees that's not able to play, C.J. Clark.
Yep.
This defensive line, I know you lose Darian Roseboro.
No, it's going to be good.
It's going to be a good defensive line.
I saw Savion Jackson walking around at the pro day, That dude is absolutely chiseled. I mean, he is cut. It's got to be a quarter ounce of body fat.
6'3", 268.
He's huge. But he looks just thick as concrete. And he looks small down there compared to Josh Harris when you see him down there. He looks like a running back.
Well, to be fair, Harris is listed at 352.
That seems generous.
So, he's giving up about 90 pounds.
Yeah.
McKay with a little time hits Angeline over the middle.
And I think that's where you see Matt McKay is right there. Is in a Tampa 2 coverage. The Mike linebackers kind of running through the middle, and Angeline just sits in that void, and he knows that where to go with it right now. Some of the other guys look like they're thinking it through, where Matt was very decisive right there, knew where to go, knew the defense, knew the void, took the completion, get a first down.
And the thing, too, is you can, I would I would presume that there is, with the way that they're operating here. I mean, don't you think that the guys who are calling the offense know that there's a Tampa 2 coming and that you're testing out the zone beaters?
I don't know. I have a feeling
Huxtable
wants to win this game too.
How? He can't win.
Right, but there's a little bit of an inner competition where I don't think they're necessarily game planning.
Okay.
But at the same time, they know what defenses they run. They've gone against them all spring.
Right.
This is 2nd and 10 for McKay.
Nice.
And was he in? Very close. They're going to mark him down inside the 1. Thayer Thomas, already 1 touchdown today.
See, now I
think if we had video review, that would be a little closer.
I think he might have been
you think he was in?
I mean, it was close.
I think he was in.
Well, I mean, this is the same sort of video review NC State got at Wake Forest 2 years ago anyway.
We'll see maybe Trent Penix here get a chance to punch it in.
More cameras than they had. You know what I'd like to see? Josh Harris run it in.
Josh Harris just
I think they will have to come up with a package for that.
The Maui package.
It's only a matter of time.
I mean,
make way.
I like it. You have watched that video. He needs to come up, if he ever gets a defensive touchdown, he needs to come with a Moana-style celebration. I mean, this is going to be a tough defensive front to run against. Look at the penetration they get. I know it's the backup offensive line. That was a good job blocking there. They look like they've been getting 2 bodies on Harris, too. Which,
I mean, you kind of have to, right, at 352?
Yeah, but, if he's out there early on and you have to double team, if you have to double team an early enrollee freshman who's bodying up there and you're opening up spots for these other defensive linemen to rush, I mean, this defense could have a little gas to it this year, I think.
We saw Ricky Person last year. In this game, I think Zonovan Knight has got Wolfpack fans very excited.
Yeah.
And now Trent Penix is a guy that we saw for a few games last year with that new rule that you can still redshirt after playing 4 games, I think is really beneficial for some of the younger guys. And Trent Penix got that redshirt designation, even though he showed some nice pass-catching skills out of the backfield. And so not only do you have the 1-2 combo running the ball, but Penix can tuck it, and he can be kind of that third down, that pass-catching option. What do you think about that new rule that allows you to redshirt? You don't burn a guy's redshirt just because he comes in for 1
I think it's great. I think it's great for the sport. Just looking back at my situation when I was a true freshman redshirting, I was behind Russell, and there was times right at the end of the games where they would have liked to have gotten me reps, but they don't want to do it because they don't want to burn the red shirt. So I think you get in 4 games. I mean, that's a good amount of time and experience.
Especially when
it feels like you're getting 5 years. You can really get truly 5 years of playing. The guys that I feel for are the walk-ons because at the end of those games where they're blowouts, when typically the walk-ons get in those situations, they're now going to be handing them to the red shirt.
Are they going to rule this as complete? I believe they will. As
nice
Hockman
job.
was able to stay in bounds, deliver a strike to Justin Dunn.
That was a nice job. It looked like Hockman, once again, was just getting chased out of the pocket, was going to have to throw it away, and he stayed patient and waited for his receiver to come back to him and delivered a really nice pass down the field there.
Another thing that red shirt rule does is it allows guys who are injured.
Right.
Obviously, you don't have to worry about will they give you a medical year or not if you get injured within the first 4 games, or the opposite scenario where sometimes you can be injured in the off season, miss quite a few games, and if you're healthy to go the last 2 games of the year, there's no harm in playing. I know that was almost the situation for Peyton Wilson, a big-time linebacker we haven't talked about yet because he's not participating in this game. They're really excited to have him coming back from a knee injury. Another one of these local guys is from Hillsborough, North Carolina.
I think it was an ACL, right? Was an ACL? Yeah, and he, I believe, profiles sort of as a Luke. I mean, not to compare to Luke Kuechly, but just a really fast chase and tackle type of guy. Nice delivery there by Hockman. Oh!
Max Fisher gets loose, and he will go the distance. Touchdown, NC State.
See right there, I mean, we'll see it on the replay, but it looked like that was RPO, kind of the craze of college football, NFL right now.
Yep.
And just a double slant concept on the outside. I know it was just so it wasn't RPO. It was just double slant, called up pass, and versus man coverage.
They definitely ran an RPO on that drive.
They did.
Yeah.
Either way, that's a great play call for that against that defense and accurate ball, and then
does that give us a clean sweep on quarterbacks leading touchdown drives, or did Bailey already have one? Yeah.
All three have now led touchdown
drives.
That's
what
McKay has 2.
You don't want to come out of here in a 3-way quarterback competition battle with no touchdowns, right?
But
I mean,
do you still want to leave this thing with a 3-way quarterback battle, or are you hoping that it gets down to 2 guys? You know?
Oh, right, yeah, maybe you narrow it. No, I'm saying like if you're one of the quarterbacks, you don't want to come out of here.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Clearly, the guy who had the worst, not the worst day, but the least dominant day.
Erin Summers is down by the field. She's got another interview with the Director of Recruiting for NC State.
Director of Player Personnel for NC State Wolfpack. You've had 15 in-state signees for the 2019 class. Coach Doran talked about building a fence around the state. How has the staff been able to do that?
Well, I think the biggest thing we've done is we've showed kids how real we are, how true we are. We don't try to use smoke and mirrors or pour rabbits out of hats, so to speak. We want to show kids that we provide them a great opportunity here, and we have. Our history's done that. I think the success we've had the last 2 years has helped that. But we've also started earlier in the process of making sure we get to see them earlier and then getting them here as much as they can, because when kids get here, they usually love this place. Like Coach Roper said earlier, it recruits itself. And so for us, it's about evaluating them early and then getting them here so we can have the best chance to recruit them.
Speaking of success that you've had recently, 7 NFL draft picks, the record for NC State last year. How does that speak to not only the recruiting here, but the development that is going on at NC State?
Well, I think it just tells the truth of what we do. Not only are we recruiting good players, because we are developing them, but you still got to have guys that have something to them when they come in. They got to be able to run. They got to be able to play hard. I mean, they got to be able to play fast, all those things. But our strength program has done a great job of developing them. I think our coaching staff teaching them all those things. I think that, we sell that a lot in recruiting. We had the second most draft picks in the country last year. We had the most in the ACC. So for us to tell kids, hey, you can come here and you can reach all your dreams, And so for us, I think we have great talent in our program, but we do a good job of developing it too.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Andrew?
Thank you, Aaron. Back here with Will Brinson, Mike Glennon. Running clock here in the second half, so this spring game going to be wrapping up pretty quickly here. We're flying through the third quarter, just over a minute left.
I think it's interesting. When we were talking to the quarterbacks before the game, Ryan Finley is not he's not old, but he's 24, 25?
24 probably.
Yeah, 24. And so they were saying how now the quarterback room is actually these 3 guys who are all really young. And it's a very different dynamic than it was from last year. But I just think it's fascinating. They said they have the text chain with them and Kurt Roper on it, but then they have a separate one with them and no Kurt Roper for texting purposes. I wonder, what do you think about that, Mike, from a perspective of how you're dealing with a 3-way competition, but you've also got the camaraderie of 3 young guys or multiple quarterbacks, more than that, but the 3 main guys, all sort of being the same age and actually being friends. You think that is sort of a tide rises and raises all boats, or whatever terrible phrase I'm trying to.
We know the cliche you're going for. Yeah.
Yes.
I think quarterback's such a unique position because there's only one guy that can play. All other positions, the multiple guys are playing, but they all understand they're in a competition with each other. But there's every quarterback room I've been in, everyone's in it together. You're helping each other out. If you see one thing, you're still teammates, and you want to be a good teammate. You want to help each other out. So These guys are no different. Although they're in competition, they all want to be the starter. They all get along well, I'm assuming, and they're all there to support one another.
I just wonder how it works, too, from the difference between 19 and 24 is pretty stark, right?
It really is. And
now we throw it back down to the field. Aaron Summers standing by with tight end coach Todd Goebel.
I'm here with the new special teams coach, Todd Goebel. Now, Doran said that was your play at Marshall that really drew him to you and how good the special teams were there. What will you bring to NC State?
Well, at the end of the day, what we want to bring here is we want to bring a dominant attitude and a lot of excitement within the special forces. And the good thing is the kids have bought in, and it's been an exciting spring, and good things are to come.
For the first time in a long time, we have to have a new punter here with A.J. Cole moving on. Who's going to fill that role?
Well, with great punters moving on, you got to have the next one step up. And we got some good young men competing right now. And Coach Worth Gregory is doing a good job with them, and excited what they're going to bring this fall.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
We need to take a quick break. We'll be back in just a minute with fourth quarter action from Raleigh. Back here at Carter-Finley Stadium, Andrew Sanders, Will Brents, and Mike Glennon. Look at the 2019 recruiting class for the Wolfpack, ranked inside the top 30 by both 247 Sports and Rivals.com. And again, the defensive line, it's going to be an experienced secondary. You got Isaiah Moore back at linebacker. You're adding Peyton Wilson. And then you've got a defensive line with 3 4-star talents on it.
I think we've seen some really impressive stuff. And they're playing against backup offensive linemen, and not everybody is healthy. But it's hard not to like what you've seen from this defensive line in terms of, not just, burst off the line of scrimmage and ability to get in the backfield, but they seem to, I think Kevin Patrick's done a very good job of, they have, these are guys that look like they know what they're doing out there, maintain some gap integrity, haven't really given up many big plays outside of that one run, big 74-yard run to Bam.
And I think, kind of hit on it earlier, but I think it's pretty obvious the correlation when you have, 3 defensive linemen drafted last year? It was 3 or 4? 3?
4.
Yeah, all 4 were drafted.
All 4 were drafted.
Yes.
And then in the following recruiting class, they get a bunch of good defensive linemen.
Sure.
The defensive linemen in the state of North Carolina take notice that you have 4 defensive linemen drafted, and that's where they want to go. And I don't think the quarterback situation is much different. Devin Leary, highly recruited kid. Ty Evans, who was just in, another Elite 11 quarterback. You have Jacoby Brissett, Ryan Finley in recent years.
Yep.
People want to follow that success, and when you're putting guys in the NFL, I think that's the biggest sell of the school is that.
Well, and we heard that too on a discussion of recruiting when Aaron's talking to Billy down there, right? He's like, we're not trying to sell these guys on anything other than what's real. But this right here is real. When you can look at it and say, listen, here's what is happening with our program when guys come in and they play for us in Raleigh and then they leave. They are really drafted. It is a real thing.
And Chubb got the headlines, but B.J. Hill,
B.J. Hill had a fantastic season for the Giants.
Justin Jones, big contributor for the Chargers.
Yep.
Naheem Hines, obviously. A lot of people watching probably had him on their fantasy team.
Absolutely.
Contributor. Kentavious Street coming off injury. Will Richardson, and then Jalen Samuels.
Yeah.
I think made it even easier to let Le'Veon go, right? Because
no doubt about it.
Jalen Samuels, when James Conner got hurt, filled in, rushed for over 100 yards.
No doubt about it. And J. Sam had a great year. And you expect, I think, that some of these other guys coming in 2019, we'll have to see where Ryan Finley ends up going. But certainly Garrett Bradbury is expected to be an impact guy out of the gates, right? Kelvin Harmon is a guy that is probably going to see a lot of targets when he is wherever he's drafted, the first or second round, wherever it is. I think Jacoby Myers could be an impact guy his first year. And so when you can not just point to guys drafted, but guys making impact and say, this is how we develop, we're not developing guys for a flashy draft stock. We're developing guys to be impact players in the league, and this is what you can be if you come here and sort of fill those shoes.
It's kind of a similar topic. I think one of the things Dave Dorn needs to get a lot of credit for is some of the hires he's made on the staff.
Absolutely.
And he's done an incredible job. I mean, just in recent years, he's had 2 coaches get hired in the NFL, numerous guys get hired elsewhere. And I think that, he deserves a lot of credit for finding those guys. And I think the school itself in Raleigh kind of sells it. I think when you talk to these coaches, they all want to coach here because Raleigh's such a great place to live. And it's a great place to raise a family. So, but I think that has had a big impact on the program is this coaching staff, the way they develop players, and Coach Doran deserves a lot of that credit.
When you see coaches leave, it's like when guys leave early for the NFL because they've had too much success. I mean, it's bad in the sense that you're losing guys who are impactful in your program.
You want continuity.
You want continuity. You want everybody to stay. I mean, in the best case scenario, everybody stays. But look, when Eli Drinkowitz leaves to become the head coach of Appalachian State, that says big things about what he's done here. It's not like he did a terrible job and got hired. Right. He did a great job. And so, of course, Dave Doran doesn't want guys to leave. But it reflects well on the program when you spread the coaching tree and you see the guys develop. And I think that you could tell there wasn't a panic in Dave Doran. Fans, there was some consternation amongst fans this offseason with some of the coaches leaving. I mean, that's natural. It happens when players leave too. I think it speaks to sort of Coach Doran's temperament in general, that he didn't panic at all. He waited. He found some good hires, and you could see that. Look, Coach Doran at the bottom line, he's a football guy. Like he really, really likes football. You can tell. He's not. I don't know that I think that the meat and potatoes aspect of the game is what appeals to him most in developing young kids and being a coach. And I would guess if you asked him that maybe media interviews is not at the top of his list. And that's fine. But you can see in the guys he hires, he also hires guys who share a like mindset in terms of developing guys, in terms of turning them into professionals, in terms of making them better young men while they're here, and guys who embody football.
And having coaches go on and get promotions somewhere else, you don't have the continuity, but that coaching tree branching out is the sign of a really healthy football program.
Right. I'm sure there's a sense of pride. I mean,
absolutely.
That shows that he's made good hires, and I don't think he's probably happy for those guys.
Now there might be a little juice to the Louisville game this year. It's possible.
How soon does App State show up on the schedule?
That's exactly right. No, the unfortunate thing about the way things unfolded with that particular instance is that the dominoes were just sort of a nightmare for Coach Doran, in that Satterfield leaves App to go to Louisville, which opens up App for Eli Drinkowitz to go. But then when Satterfield leaves, he brings Dwayne Ledford, who coached with him at App.
Darn good football coach too.
Sure,
I mean, he deserves a lot of the credit of Garrett Bradbury and those other guys that have been drafted.
Oh, nice comeback to that ball.
This is I like Micah. He's a walk-on from Florida, and in my opinion, he can spin it. He throws it well. I don't know if he's going to quite how much they're considering him in this rotation. Granted, he didn't play in the first half, but he's a guy to me that they can play at the Division I level. And I don't know, Eli Drinkwitz, if you're watching this, knows your system. He could be a fit for you at App State.
How about Devin Carter? We've seen him big-bodied, number 88, redshirt freshman, one of those guys they were high on last year.
Yeah, look, you'd love to see a redshirt freshman receiver who's running down the field, spots the ball, comes back to it, and makes a full-body catch like that. I mean, that's a pretty good fundamental move for a redshirt freshman.
Yeah, that was a great job high pointing the ball. Again, good job by the quarterback giving him a chance. But that's a great catch by the receiver.
I'm not doubting the quarterback. Always got to give the quarterback credit. Hey, the quarterback gets the yards, man.
We've seen Matt McKay, Devin Leary, Bailey Hockman all lead touchdown drives. Ty Evans come into the game. This is Will Dabbs.
Nice move by Dabbs on the cutback there.
Does he dab?
Oh, he has to, right? Is dabbing cool with the kids? We can ask Devin Leary after the game. Maybe the young McKay. He's 16.
Annabelle Myers, sports information director for NC State football, was telling us that Dabbs had 4 touchdowns in the scrimmage the other day.
Yeah.
Because they've been a little shorthanded at running back, obviously, with Ricky Person out. And walk on, getting a chance.
I think one of the things that you see in the spring game, and you talk about, fourth string quarterback, right? And the third or fourth string running back. This is sort of a depth that I don't know in terms of across the board depth. I don't know that we've seen at NC State in a long time.
Yeah, I was at practice not too long ago, and I texted Eli Drinkwitz that, and I said, this is a deep group of quarterbacks. I mean, you have a walk-on quarterback that
spinning
is talented.
the ball down the field.
I mean, he can throw well, and then we saw a little bit of Ty Evans, but I mean, that's a deep room, and again, my biggest thing of that is how do they determine the reps? It's tough to you only have so much time to practice and can only get so many reps in a day. So,
I mean, the reality of football at every single level is that injuries are going to happen because it's a violent, tough game. And so the teams that are able to overcome those injuries are teams that have great depth. I think you see this at the NFL level, the way that the teams are working with the quarterback rooms, right? Like the Titans just traded for Ryan Tannehill, because they know that Marcus Mariota is a guy that hadn't always been healthy, and they want to make sure that they can operate if something happens to him. And it's even harder to do at a college level because you're trying to focus on developing your starters and get those starters reps. But man, what a job by this staff to get this, not the second tier guys. I mean, look, if something happens and Will Dabbs has to be the starting running back, they're going to feel comfortable putting him out there and letting him play and letting him run. I think he showed that there on that touchdown run.
Evans over the middle. We get another look at this true freshman, and not a lot of people are thinking he's going to factor into this QB battle at this point just because he's a true freshman. This is, as you said, Mike, an Elite 11 guy. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year of the state of Colorado, #1 recruit in the state. This is a very talented guy. Mike, you were an Elite 11 QB as well. What was that experience like? I mean, it is really what the name says, right? It is elite competition.
Yeah, when I did it, it was a little different. When it was me, it was just, ironically, it was actually 12 guys. I guess they figured it'd be easier to have an even number. But now it's more of a production, and that they do the whole TV deal. It's like 25 guys, and they get down to 11.
Yeah. Trent Dilfer does a big pump-up dance.
But it is an unbelievable experience. More just when you look back. I mean, in my class alone, it was Andrew Luck, Blaine Gabbert, E.J. Manuel, Landry Jones. A lot of guys that go on to play in the NFL, and we're together as 17-year-olds, and now you watch. I watch Andrew Luck every Sunday, and when you cross paths with them, that's kind of our connection to one another.
Sure.
And I also went back as a counselor when I was in college, and that was a year Jared Goff was there, Christian Hackenberg, some guys that have played in JT Barrett. So that was kind of another cool experience that you kind of watch them grow through college, and now Jared's playing in the Super Bowl. So
it's a very
experience.
It's a very refined, you get, if you're a good quarterback, if you show skills as a quarterback and you have the requisite physical skill set, you can get pushed into that, and that's how you can tell.
Yeah.
That helps you to get to the next level because it identifies guys who are successful. By the way, should we just have a discussion about a running clock in real college football games? It's fantastic. People wouldn't be able to leave at halftime if you did this. You have to get back right as the third quarter starts.
Well, I saw they were talking about changing the law.
They need to do that.
And
am I allowed to demand that or request that they change the beverage? Oh, another block. Tip pass.
Defensive line staying busy. Savion Jackson was in there along with, I believe, Ibrahim Kante.
In pass outs and sell beer. Make a bunch of money. Keep the stands full in the third quarter, too. That's one of the – look, NC State fans are passionate, great fans. One of the things that they could work on is not leaving at halftime. But the option's there. I understand it. I mean, you was like that when you were here, right? Started the third quarter?
Yeah, and as a player, I remember I wasn't a fan of it, but then you come back as a fan and you kind of
do. You don't mind leaving for the third quarter. Right. Look, Carter-Finley has one of the best atmospheres in college football. When this place is rocking Thursday night, it's a tough place to play.
So earlier, Mike, you were talking about this is the first opportunity for some of these guys to play in Carter-Finley. Obviously, it's not the same crowd that you'd have on a Thursday night or on a Saturday night. What is it like, big night game? A couple years ago, I remember you guys played FSU in a big night game.
Yeah.
It ended up going pretty well for you.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that like when you take the field and you're in the game?
There's definitely an excitement to it, kind of leading up to it, and when you first get out here. But then when the game kind of settles, it turns into football.
Okay.
But then in that instance, when you throw a touchdown pass with 15 seconds left to beat, the number 3 team in the nation, the adrenaline and
is that E.J. Manuel?
Excitement. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
There's not much that tops that feeling. So the fans are great here. It's well known amongst guys that play here. You talk to guys in the NFL and they talk about when they play here. They're like, Carter, NC State's one of the most underrated places to play, and in the ACC, I think people would say Clemson, Virginia Tech, and then I think a lot of people would probably put NC State right
Virginia
there.
Tech's different because it's like
the night atmosphere.
Yeah, but it's just scary. You're up in the mountains. You don't feel like you're near.
Entertainment
is awesome. Yeah. No, I think.
But here you're in the middle of one of the hottest cities in the world, not just in North Carolina. I mean, Mike, you're from Virginia, playing for the Raiders. You still live here in the off season, right?
Yeah. So we made Raleigh our home. We love it here. Come back here every off season and work out here, and just know this is where I live when I'm done playing.
Yeah, I had these Dwayne Lefford's kids went to my son's preschool. So I mean, that's the type of it's just like White Memorial Church, but it's the type of atmosphere, the southern atmosphere of Raleigh that's just so wonderful that you can't replicate anywhere else.
So that'll conclude the 2019 KYAL Spring Game. Guys, what are your final thoughts on what we saw this afternoon?
I think, hitting on the quarterback battle, I kind of went as I would have expected. Matt McKay looks the most comfortable right now, but you see the flashes from both Devin Leary and Bailey Hawkman. So I imagine this is going to be an ongoing competition all the way throughout camp, and Coach Jordan's going to have to have a tough decision to make, for that season opener.
He's going to be so annoyed by it. He's going to get asked 7,000 times this offseason about that quarterback battle. What stood out to me is that, one, look, Bam Knight, you talk about an incoming impact guy, running behind an offensive line that was dinged up and mostly backups. I think had close to 150 rushing yards. Incredible game out there. The wide receiver class group is deep and capable of replicating, of stepping in and filling the shoes of those guys who left. And then I think this defense is going to be something to watch. Between the young guys and the returning guys on the defensive line, you can see that there is a lot of talent. And having a veteran secondary and a veteran group of linebackers, it seems like this defense might be an underrated aspect of this franchise, of this football team come the fall.
Guys, it was a pleasure to call this spring game with you. Spring practice comes to a close. We'll next see NC State football in the fall as they open up on August 31st with East Carolina. For Will Brinson, Mike Glennon, Aaron Summers, our fantastic crew here in Raleigh, my name is Andrew Sanders. Thank you so much for watching. Final score, Wolfpack 34, NC State 21 here at the 2019 KYAL Spring Game. This has been a presentation of ESPN.